So from what I understand, there are some new people that just joined us today, and I think the word on the street is you have to go to boot camp, so new? Excellent. What's your name? Christy Atan from Wilson Wolf. Welcome. For Christy and others, if you are new, you want to connect with Bianca. She's standing in the back, and she'll set you up with everything that you're going to need as you go forward. So I hope you enjoy it. Hey, day 4. It's we had summer. We gave you summer over the weekend, and that is all part of boot camp. So I hope you guys appreciated it. And but then it got really cold in the afternoon, just so you guys would snap out of it. So today is nothing to sneeze at, and what I mean by that is Linda is a trooper. Most of us, and I'm one of them, I don't feel that great. I might not come in today. Linda is not feeling well, but you would never know it, and she would never say it, so it's nothing to sneeze at. She'll do plenty of it for you. Without further ado, Linda. Okay.
All right, so hopefully the cold medicine doesn't kick in and I can still think straight. Just as a nice way to start, life has no remote. Get up and change it yourself. Part of our boot camp theme. All right, habits. If you want to change habits, the most important thing is to put yourself in a frictionless environment. Put yourself in a place where things are easy. This is the most brilliant display of cookies I have ever seen. Look at Oreo doesn't want to be in the cookie aisle, right? They want to be in the milk aisle. People who want to make sure they're going to get up and exercise, sometimes they sleep in their exercise clothes. They're, like Katie said, my sneakers are right there, no excuses. Creating an environment for success is really important. And Oreos has created an amazing environment for success by displaying themselves with the milk. Can't you see it? I want you to start thinking about everything in your life a little bit smarter. How can I make that easier? At the end, we're going to talk about how all of those real estate disruptors are trying to make it more frictionless for sellers. People want the easy route. When you're in traffic, you want to go the path of least resistance, right? So that's where we're at. Think Oreos and milk. When you're trying to get habits, how can I make this easier to adapt? And then I walked by this board this week, and it says, there are 3 ways to ultimate success by Mr. Rogers. The first way is to be kind. The second way is to be kind. And the third way is to be kind. I can't underscore this enough because sometimes in real estate, we are so hot and heavy in protection of our client that we don't behave well to the other side. There's no upside to that. It is always going to backfire. Be kind. You're going to get so much further with your co-broke, for your client, everything you do. And then lastly, Mary is going to be speaking on Friday here, and she came up to walk with me in a Gunkwit, and she said, oh my God, look at that roof. Now, think about a Gunkwit, historical old homes. This is recently renovated. She said to me, do you think they hate that blue metal roof? I said, oh no, I think it's probably their favorite part, right? So I'm saying this is not classic. It is not timeless. It is practical. It's going to last 3 times as long. It won't, it's just a good roof, but it doesn't fit in. Be careful when people and clients want to do something that might be smart, might even be a lot more expensive, but is not going to be a turn on when it comes time to make property attractive. So with that, we have a new guest speaker. I'm very excited to introduce Susan Gormady. She works with classified real estate. I was talking to her last week, and she has some great, mindsets on how she sets herself up for success. This woman sold 51 transactions last year all by herself for $34 million. And with that, welcome Susan Gormady.
Thank you. Awesome. I need this area filled in here. I'm a little nervous, so I want to, I don't know if this row could be filled in. I'd like that. Maybe one more person. Oh, she's here. All right, maybe this seat. Awesome. Great. Perfect. Now I feel good. So thank you all for having me. I'm super excited to be here. So yes, I work with Classified Realty Group, and I'm here today to share, like Linda mentioned, some of the things that I do to prepare for a listing presentation. So one thing that I like to do, well, first of all, we all know what we have to do before the seller. We have to do our homework, right? We have to check public record. We have to go, am I good?
No, I'm just hearing that you're not getting picked up, so make sure you're going to center you a little bit, and you're going to walk this way and this way. All right, there we go.
All right, fan away. So we all do our homework, right? We check public record, we go to town hall, review the comps. So that's the homework that we have to do. That's the must. Well, I like to take it a step further, and I'd like to get my kids involved. So here we are, my two boys. Yeah. So Gavin, he's on the right. He's my 8-year-old. He's in 2nd grade. And Luke, he's my 5-year-old. He's in kindergarten. So they know that I sell houses, right? But they don't really know what I do. So it's important for me that they can become involved in the process. So when I'm preparing to meet with the seller, I role play with my kids in the car. It's our chance to, it's our quiet time. So if we're on our way to the gym or the mall or school, whatever it is, I use this as an opportunity to practice what I'm going to say to the seller. So I'm the realtor. Gavin, he's the seller. Luke, well, he's 5, so like all 5-year-olds during a listing presentation, he's distracting us. But that's okay, because he's cute, so we give him a pass. And we go back and forth. Gavin sometimes will play tough seller, where he's, why should I hire you? And he gives me a hard time, which is fine. We've done it enough that he knows his role. But again, it gives me a chance to share what I do with my boys. And we have fun. It's a bonding experience. So that's one thing I do. The next thing I do is, it's going to sound kind of crazy, but I wear the same thing to every listing presentation. Same thing. And thank God it still fits, because I don't know what I'll do if I can't wear this outfit. I'm a bit superstitious, but this is the outfit I wear. I have one for the spring, and this is what I wear for the fall. I do that because I feel comfortable in this outfit. I change the shoes. Right, I do change the shoes. Because that's what I used to do before selling real estate. I sold luxury shoes. But anyways, that's what I do. But I feel good in this outfit. I feel comfortable. I feel confident. I look good in it. And I don't have to think about it. It's done. It's picked out. Sometimes you get a call. Can you come? I need you to see my house right now. And that has happened to me. And I don't have time to do the homework. But my outfit's ready. And I feel good in it. I feel confident. So at least I have one thing done. There's someone else who does this. This guy. Tiger Woods wears that red shirt. Probably not that one, because he's a billionaire. So I'm sure he has a lot of red shirts. But he wears his red shirt when he's in the final rounds of a tournament. That's his winning shirt. That's why I do it. So those are the things I do. But how I really prepare for a listing presentation, it's how I think. It's a mindset. It's a mindset that I adopted many years ago. And that's the story that I really want to share with you. This is a picture of my childhood home. I grew up in Boston, Mattapan section of Boston. We lived on the first floor. That was a 2-bedroom house, 1 bathroom. There was 5 of us. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Mattapan, let me paint a picture of what this neighborhood looked like. A lot of drugs, heavy gang activity. My mom, we didn't have a car. My mom walked everywhere. She was robbed at least once a month. My friends, a lot of them, pregnant, 13, 14. Some of them are grandmothers and not even 40 yet. So that was home. That's where I'm from. But lucky for me, I had the great opportunity to become aligned with the Boys and Girls Club. And the Boys and Girls Club offered amazing opportunities for at-risk youth. So in the summer of 1996, I had the opportunity to attend an entrepreneur seminar. And this was put on in collaboration with the Boys and Girls Club and a man by the name of Roger Harris. Roger Harris was a prominent figure in the Boston community. He was an educator. And he put together an entrepreneur seminar. So here I am, 1996, 15 years old. Good luck. And we go to the Heinz Convention Center for this entrepreneur seminar. And we have to be dressed to impress, which meant ladies, business attire, guys, shirt and tie. You had to be on time. 9 o'clock for a week. You had to commit to it. So we arrive, big auditorium, take a seat. Mr. Harris comes to the podium, introduces himself, and says to us, before we get started, I'd like to begin with a little exercise. One of you, there's a surprise under your seat. I'd like you to reach underneath. And for one of you, there's an envelope. Once you have it, raise your hand, introduce yourself, and show us what's in the envelope. So we look under our seats. I have the envelope. Super excited. Not sure what's in it, but I love winning, so I raise my hand, introduce myself. And he says to me, Miss, I watched you walk into this room. You could have sat anywhere. But you went to the front row and sat in the center seat. From this day forward, I need you to know how important it is to sit in that seat. That seat shows me that you are focused, that you are present, that you are driven, that you are excited for what I'm about to present to you. And if that seat isn't available, that's okay. Maybe the next one is, so you sit next to that person. Or if you come in late and the only seat available is the one in the back, then you make that your front and center seat. I need you to understand it is a mindset. And with that mindset, you can achieve anything. Well, that was pretty heavy for day one. But carry on, seminar ends. I lost that story. And the reason I lost that story is because when I was 15, my mother suffered from severe depression, the worst kind imaginable. Multiple suicide attempts. She was in and out of hospitals. My dad had passed away a couple of years prior. I couldn't maintain a front and center mindset. I had to take care of my family. And it was very difficult getting through my teenage years, getting through high school, but I managed to. Graduated from college. Fast forward 2013, I got my real estate license, and we have to attend a lot of trainings, seminars, continuing ed courses. And I find myself being drawn to the front of the room. I'm at the gym, trying to stay in shape. I find myself going to the front of the room, in front of the exercise class, in front of the spin class. I'm wondering, it's kind of strange. And then one day, 2018, I remember it vividly. Roger Harris, boom, popped into my head. Oh my God, front and center, yes. No wonder I keep going to the front. That's right. He told me this story almost 25 years ago. I forgot about it, I'm sorry. But you know what? I'm going to take this front and center mindset and I'm going to do something with it. I'm going to apply that to my business. But not just to my business, but to my life. 2018 was a turning point for me. Both my kids were now in school full-time. I enrolled them in childcare, so they were in school, well, daycare, if you will, from 8 to 6. So I didn't see them as much. So it was really important that the time we spent together, that I was front and center, that I was present. So I took that mindset and I applied it. So what did that mean for me? So 2019, it's a new year, all right, front and center. That means when I meet with a seller, I am front and center. It is an energy. It means that I'm focused, I am driven, I have the energy, that they can feel it. In my personal life, I'm front and center for my family. I'm front and center. They know when I come home, when that 6 o'clock bell goes off, dinner table, there's no phone. I'm done. I do it for these guys. And with that front and center mindset, I was able to double my business. I went from selling 30 houses a year to, like Linda said, 50, 51, and $34 million in production. And I did that with a front and center mindset. We took 4 vacations. I didn't really work a lot of weekends. At nights, nope, I was front and center. I had to make that a priority because I knew the power in that message. And thank you, Dr. Harris, for coming back to me. That message was so powerful, and it changed me. So if you want to know how I prepare for a listing presentation, there it is. After my research is done, talk to my kids in the car. I wear my lucky outfit, my red shirt, if you will. And I present a front and center mindset to every seller that I meet with. And I invite you to do the same. We're entering a new year, a new decade, and just imagine what that mindset could do for you. And I invite you to share that with me because I am so excited, again, that this message came back to me. And I was so fortunate at 15 to hear that story. So there you have it. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share that with you. I'm super excited. Question?
What was in the envelope, Susan?
Oh, God, did I forget that part?
You did.
Oh!
You did. That's right. I'm letting you go.
What's under your chair? Now you know why I wanted this front row filled in.
The irony would have been too good if
Oh,
no one
God, I
sat
didn't forget
there.
the best part. It's a $100 bill. And a $100 bill for a poor girl from Mattapan was a lot of money, so
That's right.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more about being in the car with your kids?
Oh, yes!
Talk about getting psyched up. Not just you're the role of the seller, but you talked about the mindset you had in the car.
Yes.
Please.
So sometimes, I mean, I talk a lot to myself, but with the kids, it's this energy. And for me, and I always ask the seller afterward, after I've been hired, what was it? What was it? And they always say, you know what? It was your energy. You were so excited about this opportunity. And that is the role that I play back and forth with my kids. And that energy is something that I bottle up, that I practice with them, and that I'm able to apply when I go in front of a seller.
Practice right now with me.
Oh,
Practice
good.
with
We're
your
doing
kids
this? All right.
Right now. So, I'm Gavin.
Gavin.
Get excited. What are you doing?
Gavin, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. So I understand that you're looking to sell your home, but what is it that's most important to you? What is it that is driving this decision? Tell me what you love about your home. What's the most important thing about this place? Why have you lived here for the last 40 years?
Wow, is that a segue to Mary Shememi on Friday? That was perfect. All right. So was that awesome? Are you guys going to be front and center?
Center!
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
All right, we're going to do an abbreviated listing presentation. We don't have time to get into the down and dirty, but we're going to have fun. All right? All right, with that, we're going to talk about the art of selling. So, remember that we had that great phone conversation? Is that me? Again. All right, I don't.
Susan.
No, it's me. Oh, is it Susan? I think that's it. All right, there we go. The art of selling. We've had that wonderful phone conversation. Now it's time to go over and meet with clients. You know everything about their house, right? They've told you every detail. Matter of fact, Jen Jutras up front said, I used that. That was a great way. I know more than I've ever known going into any listing appointment. They're meeting tonight. Can't wait to see how it goes. But it went well. She reports that that was a great conversation. Yeah, all right. So you get there, and what does a seller want you to do? They want you to tour around the house. What you might need to do if this is the time, the kids are coming home from daycare in half an hour, we need to go through. Remember, everything's a game time decision. But really, don't do what all the other realtors do. Sit down with them. talk to them, go through a presentation with them, listen to them, ask them questions. And here's an abbreviated version, and I'm only going to highlight some things. This is going to be fast. Ready? So we are going to open with our before and after photos. This is not the typical listing presentation. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, here's Scarlett Johansson with and without her makeup on. If selling your house today is like internet dating, who's going to get more dates on Match.com? Now, I've been using these a long time. I used to use before and afters of homes, which sellers got. Now, let's go back. I am not trying to, body shame any women who don't wear makeup. Let's think of this as just the entire buying public is shallow. It's true. It's why we stage. When you put up this kind, by the way, Scarlett Johansson is great. This is from her Facebook post, her personal page. This is what I really look like, she says. The fact is, all of these homes are lived in. It's the way people live. But they got to get ready to attract people to see their house. So it's time for them to put their makeup on. Cameron Diaz is gorgeous. But look what happens. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, does your house need a little makeup to attract more attention, to bring in more buyers? Amy Adams, she's dressed up for the party. Mr. and Mr. Seller, Mrs. and Mrs. Seller. Let's not, be stereotypical as it Mr. and Mrs. People are coming over. You're having company. You've got to dress up. These are things that you can do that will have a big impact on your success. I will tell you, these slides in front of a seller totally absorb people. They're like, can we have copies of that? It resonates. It touches them emotionally. Did you notice that we did not start off with Leading Edge is the top brokerage, independent brokerage in Massachusetts? We did not mention our market share in this company is blah, 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 because they don't care. Now they're paying attention. You have got their attention. And they're feeling something like, there's some truth to what this crazy redhead is saying. I'm ashamed to admit that these photos do make a difference, just like they will to the buyers when they come to my house. Secondly, count on us to protect you. In 1996, I was so busy that I was scared to death personally that I was going to make a mistake on behalf of my seller. I was afraid that during the offer form, which, let's remind everyone, is totally binding on the seller. It's not binding on the buyer. The buyer has a million escape clauses. I don't like the home inspection, check, I'm out. I don't get my financing, I'm out. You can get out. Buyers can escape. If you're newer in the business, you might not have seen this. But you never have to sign a purchase and sale. Sure, that's the exact contract that we think we have to sign. Sometimes when things go wrong in negotiation and the seller doesn't want to sign a purchase and sale because they haven't been able to negotiate what they really want, you can go to closing just with the offer form. A good attorney will file a lease pendant in the court, and that house is sold. Now, that seems like a very unfair proposition. Buyers can get out at the offer form, and the sellers can't. Doesn't that seem unfair? Shouldn't every seller and buyer have a chance to have attorney review before they're locked into a contract with each other? As our attorney says, you should be able to kiss before you get engaged and married, right? Let's find out if this is going to work. So in 1996, I went to our attorney and said, I'm moving fast. I'm selling a lot of real estate. What if I forget to exclude the Waterford chandelier, which is, I didn't make that up. That really happened. Do you know how much a Waterford chandelier is? They can be tens of thousands of dollars. I was able to work it out, but I might have been buying a Waterford chandelier. I'd forgotten to exclude it. At the time, I went to my attorney and said, I need an addendum. I need something to protect me and my client. This is really important. No one else in the industry has an addendum to protect the seller. The buyer has all the protections in the world. So we came up with we called it our addendum. It has evolved. I've been using it now for 24 years. If you learn how to use our addendum, that should be enough for every seller to want to hire you. Nobody else in Massachusetts is protecting the seller from the time they list a property, from the time of the offer. It's very simple. It grew, the addendum grew, all right? So here's the other thing I saw happening, and I am ashamed to admit that when I was a new agent, you know how you can get out on financing clause, right? Any buyer doesn't have to go forward if they are not granted financing, right? You get your deposit back. I actually heard myself say to buyers, you can make an offer on that. I know you need to sell your house, but don't worry. The other agent never checks that, and we can always get out if your house doesn't sell. Think about how bad that is to the seller. But that's the way we thought of it. This is the early 90s. As I became a listing agent, nobody's going to do that to my seller. I need to protect my seller. So our addendum has language that simply says that that this offer is not contingent on the sale of any of the buyer's assets. What I mean that is their house, I don't care if it's your stock portfolio, if you have to sell your yacht. Because you can get out on that. It's not contingent on the sale of any assets. And if you're denied financing because you did not sell any of your assets, your house, you will not get your deposit back. That was one of the smartest things I ever did in real estate. Because you know what it did? It flushed people out. The addendum now is a checkbox. It is contingent on the sale of assets or it's not. If it is, just tell me. I still might want your offer because nobody else wants this house. You know, we've been on for 4 months and I might be willing to wait for you to sell your house. But now, all that coy bamboozling is off the table. No other company in Massachusetts is protecting sellers like Leading Edge. Nobody's doing it. And then we added one third thing, which I thought was pretty smart, which was also to protect our agents and our sellers. It's a simple clause that says, listen, buyers are responsible for their due diligence. We've represented everything the best we can, but you should make sure you're okay with the zoning. You should make sure you're okay with, you know, our square footage, that it all makes sense to you. It has saved so many of our agents when contracts weren't quite right. We've had agents do all kinds of silly things. But you remember, you need to know that the only contract that's going to be valid is the purchase and sale. Hold on a quick second, Arlene. I will tell you that my mother had a good friend who insisted on doing for sale by owner. And she accepted an offer contingent on the sale of the buyer's house. No end date. No end date. That contract was totally binding on that seller. It only took them 3 years to sell their house. She could not get out of it. These are things you do not want to have happen to you. It's a little oversight. You have your seller sign something quickly, and all of a sudden you've locked them in for 3 years. And it's enforceable. This is kind of a magic thing. So there's a little slide in our seller's contract that says, we have a consumer protection plan. We're not calling it an addendum. People don't like legal documents. Here's our consumer protection plan. Our exclusive consumer protection plan protects your interests like no other real estate company. When a seller signs an offer to purchase contract in Massachusetts, it is binding on the seller but not on the buyer. Let me explain. Our Leading Edge consumer protection plan ensures seller will have the opportunity to have all documents reviewed by an attorney prior to signing the purchase and sale contract or prior to being bound to the offer. All parties agree to work in good faith towards a mutually agreeable purchase and sale agreement, and buyers must disclose if their purchase is contingent upon the sale of any real property or other personal assets. Our rider prevents any last-minute surprises that could require a seller to return an offer deposit due to the buyer's inability to sell any property or assets. It's a little bit complicated. Just know that when you use the addendum, your ass is covered. And your client's ass is covered. One of the stories we remember is that we had an agent who was sued. She represented the seller, and the buyer bought a condominium and later sued because they smelled smoke in the condominium. Now, that particular, that buyer obviously hadn't smelled it before. Now, it doesn't stop the lawsuit or complaint from happening, but when we started waiving, your buyer signed a thing saying they had to do their own due diligence. It put an end to it, and the E&O, and they were exonerated. We've added a whole bunch of other little things to make sure that dual agency, consent is there for dual and designated agency, just to protect you because you forget the other forms. But this is gold. If used properly, it can be leveraged to be, we are the only people protecting the consumer at this point of contract. And remember what Ramsey says, people act more out of fear than they do out of attraction for something. All right, preparing for success. We're going to go through these quickly. Decluttering your home, it gives you all kinds of stats. It's really important that you see the difference in decluttering. Give them some visuals, right? So that we do that. Improving your home. Again, some more stats. Again, I have time for this. Home improvements. I love this photo. This photo, Danny Fleming's listing, MIT professor, who insisted that they didn't need to stage and that they knew the right price. Danny Fleming had a great way to approach this. She knew the price was too high and then he needed to do work. But what she said to him was, listen, okay, we'll do it your way. But if in 30 days it doesn't work, we're going to do it my way. And that's the property that now had multiple offers. Isn't it funny how people stage with the furniture? They live with their furniture all around the edges of the room. They just don't know how to stage a house. He's an analytical MIT guy. Amazing what you can do. I love this photo because look what happens to the brick when it's painted. We've all shown these 1940s and 50s houses with the brick. You just walk through them, they're pass-through rooms, they're nothing. Now it's become this desirable, inviting place to be. Ramsey had this flip. He put in now countertops and appliances, but how different is that? He didn't spend a ton of money. Would you spend $15,000 on this, Ramsey?
25 total.
25 total. Fix up the bathrooms. But you made how much?
220.
220. This is what happens to sellers when they're willing to make the investment. But until they can see it and you provide it, you can talk to them until the cows come home. But until they can feel it and experience it, they don't understand. Here's all kinds of stats about staging your home, right? And some examples. They need to see it. I think this is Ramsey's as well, right? Just let's make it better. It's also Ramsey's. Curb appeal, really important. You can talk about that. Here's some examples. What paint will do in a little landscaping. We've got you covered with our preferred vendor network. We've got people for everything. Give them comfort. They don't know people. If you can come and say, we've got people, it makes it comfortable and easy. And our leading edge discussion pages is full of vendors. Marketing your home. Make sure they know you have a plan. Again, I'm not going into all of these, but we've covered it. I know this is going to happen, this is going to happen. They just need to know you know the plan. Mostly they don't even want to know what it is. They can't take it all in. They just need to see that you've got a plan. Premier marketing collateral, these are all the things we do, from our exclusive luxury e-magazine, special events, custom social media advertising. They need to know you're all over online, right? We've got you covered. I changed the slide. Using predictive analytics to find your buyer. The number one question you need to answer for any seller at the listing table is, how are you going to find my buyer? I'll tell you, this is basically Facebook analytics. We're not going to call it Facebook analytics here. We're going to call it predictive analytics. We use cutting edge technology to identify potential buyers. Our reach isn't to anybody, but the right audience for your home. We're able to target buyers down to someone's interest and habits to find the perfect match to sell your home as quickly as possible. That's what they need to know. Take advantage of our exclusive offering with leading edge luxury property of Greater Boston Digital E-Magazine. Mando works her ass off in this. You have $1 million plus property. What a nice thing to do. Every leading edge agent should have this in their email signature. Professional photography, it matters, right? Beautiful, beautiful layouts and brochures, it matters. All that's available to you. We're here to help. We're here to help you find interested buyers for your property. Our goal is to create competition to magnify your results. Can't guarantee it, that's our goal. We have strategies to inspire bidding wars in any market. I think I mentioned back in 2010, 11, 12, you could still have a bidding war, just no one would pay asking. But if it was the one that was the shiny penny, people came out. And then if you knew you priced it right, I just used to stamp my feet up and down going, go ahead, go look at everything else. You'll come back, you'll pay. I priced it right because it's all priced. We're going to get into that at the end of today. Can we sell your house in 7 days? We have proven marketing strategies that can help you sell your home in 7 days at top dollar, depending on what you decide to do and how you decide to price it. We have a plan. It's important to have a plan for reviewing offers. Do you want to accept offers as they arrive? Or do you want to review offers at a certain date and time? Pick one. You can't do this. Let's see. I'm going to take them as they come, is what you decide. And then an offer comes in on Saturday before the Sunday open house, and then you cannot say to the buyer, if it's a really good full price offer, we're going to wait. You didn't make that decision. We got to get back to that buyer. You will alienate a good buyer. They need to understand if they reject that buyer at full price and then the next day nothing comes in, what does the buyer think? I overpaid. You need to be able to understand all of the nuances of how offers are accepted early on in the process to set the stage for success. Just like do not let yourself be bullied into taking an offer before Tuesday at noon if that's your deadline. Ready? You make you look bad and you make us look bad. That wasn't the plan. When you do that, you've broken your word. And it ruins Steve's weekend, because we always send those calls to Steve. It just ruins his weekend. Don't do it. Nothing burns my britches like, we're looking at offers Tuesday at noon, unless, of course, the seller reserves a right to take a better offer if one comes in, which is, I'm not holding offers. They're doing that in Cambridge. I do not understand it. That does not make any sense to me. It's critical that you stick to the rules that you set. Do you see how we have paperwork for that later? And by the way, Leading Edge does have something in our listing packet that says seller has agreed to, in writing, to hold offers. On the Cape and the Islands MLS, you're required to have that. You need to submit that. Otherwise, you can't hold offers. So that's all in place. Negotiations. I'm not going to go into all of it, but this is your chance to teach the seller about good negotiation strategy long before they have to negotiate. Let's understand this. The buyer always wants to pay less, right? Don't get mad at the buyers. They have different interests than you do. They haven't lived in your home. They are cautious about the problems the home inspector finds and want things to be fixed that you don't think are a problem. Their expert told them the issue was a problem. We will work through the bumps. When negotiating gets tough, it's critical that you try to understand the buyer's position. Conversely, we will clearly articulate your position to the buyer to create a win-win. If you become entrenched in your position and won't budge, that often is the beginning of a failed transaction. The minute you hear the words, not going below 600, it's over. 2 pieces of advice here. Pretend you didn't hear it, because they have to save face. Oh, they have to save face. Oh, I've been told. You got to keep moving around, Linda. Okay, they have to save face. It's really important that you don't let someone become entrenched. Remember, there's always something that will put the deal together. Are you going to throw in the washer and dryer? Are you going to leave all the wood for the fireplace? There's always something that you can leave to negotiate, and it's really important that you do. When one side is stuck, that usually ends negotiations. Always be willing to give a little to get a little until we have a deal. That is a successful negotiation strategy. Next steps, right? Now, I think it's really important that everyone understand that the way the world, we talked about doing things the way everyone else does, is everyone's asking for commissions. We can't discuss specific commissions, call it 5 apples, 6 apples. We have different offices here. But I can tell you this, the people always like the arrangement a lot better if they have a choice. You should give choices on commission. I want you to think of this as a wine list at a restaurant. Every restaurant has one food item or a wine that's ridiculously high. It makes you feel a lot better about the one that you pick, right? You're not going to order the $300 bottle of wine. All of a sudden, the $78 bottle of wine doesn't sound so bad, right? Restaurant upon restaurant has this one expensive item. You know, it's the one with all of the fish and scallops and lobsters. You know, it might be delicious, but it's really highly priced. They do that very specifically because they're going to offer something almost like that for less money. And now they've upsold you. We need to think about commissions as choice. And when you give people choice, again, they like it better. So how about if you said to the seller, you have a choice about what commission you'd like to pay? First of all, remember people don't like to be told what to do? You're just going to ask them. We have Mr. and Mr. Seller, we have a 7% plan, right? And it has all of these things. You know, we're going to do 3 open houses and 1 broker tour the first week you're on the market, and we're going to do weekly open houses until the property is sold. You know, we're going to give you $4,000 credit towards staging. You can adjust these, right? We will oversee all the paint improvements. We're going to buy you a home warranty. We're going to do everything. Important to know. We also have a 6% plan. 6%. We're only going to do open houses, let's see, 6, there we go. Open houses every other week, right? And then we're only going to do a $2,000 credit staging. And then, you know, we're going to do a lot of the same things. And now, here's our 5% plan. And that's probably what most of us do. I would think this is a really strong minimum standard for what everybody should do. You don't have to be lending them money or giving them staging money or any of those kind of things that we suggest. This is great. But how about there isn't anybody here that's seasoned in the business that hasn't been said, listen, Paul, you know, the last agent in here will do it for 4%. And now you're feeling like you're under the gun. I discussed at length that I always got more commission than someone else because they understood the value. But what better way to say, I'll do it for 4%, but I'm only going to do what they do. Can you show me their written marketing plan? Do people who do 4% have written marketing plans? No, I can assure you they do not. And it's not necessary to see the materials if they are simply copy machine printouts of the MLS listing. Have we set a different standard? Now, Kim Izzy, remember I said that 20% of all people are just driven by price? She had someone, I want the 4% plan. She's like, Linda, they want the 4% plan. She said, I feel guilty. They don't want me to do it. I said, they chose that. They chose those services. If I know Kim, she did more than the 4% plan because she can't help herself, right? Right, because she felt like she wasn't doing her job. That's a decision the consumer is making with open eyes. Just like the bottle of wine, they don't jump on 4% anymore. They start to see that the 4% plan isn't really the same as what you get for 5. Do you see how that makes sense? All right, my marketing services, okay, here's the 5% stuff. It's all kinds of things. I'm not going to read them all to you, but I have to go through all of these little things, you know, builds on the slides, all the things you need to do. There's a lot more than that, but that's the basics that you can talk about. All right, seller's checklist. Things that if we have them now will save you problems later. Remember, we're trying to pre-resolve problems. You know, it would be really handy if we had your seller's disclosure. Your job is you're going to fill that out. Let's get the payoff, the mortgage payoff information right now. So no one's chasing that when your paperwork is on the moving truck. That's a problem. Let's get an inclusion-exclusion list. I am shocked at how few agents in the marketplace have an inclusion-exclusion sheet. Make it clear up front, then you don't have problems later. Do you have any home pest or other warranties? Is there a contract for your oil we should know about? Once you leave, you've already bought some that we need to negotiate with the buyers. Do you have solar panels? Let's deal with that now. Do you have a security system contract? Will the buyer have to assume any fees or money that is owed, or is there anything you would have to pay off at closing? A betterment, etc. This is what causes havoc in real estate deals, and 99% of agents never think to ask these questions. Now it's all part of your process, and you are avoiding all kinds of things. You will not be hanging upside down from the chair list with your pants around your ankles. Can't you see this? Right? Right? All right, for our files, we need the deed, we want a current tax bill, we want a plot plan, we need all the condo docs and everything from your association. Any other thing that will be relevant to your sale, the termite contract, etc. Before we close, you'll need a check made out to the town and city for smoke detectors. Let's get all that stuff lined up. You can have that in your file for when you meet the fire department. By the way, if you're making that kind of money, don't make the seller meet the fire department and take a day off from work. I cannot believe how many people make the seller do that. We make a lot of money. We're damn lucky to do it. We better damn earn it. All right, 2 more things. I think you have to discuss wire fraud, right? They should never, ever, Susie and Joe do not, under any circumstances, ever wire any money unless you personally talk to someone at our office. Do not email or call the numbers that are in the email that's asking you to do that. That's part of the fraud. Make sure you have that conversation. And then, do you have any surveillance equipment? It is illegal in Massachusetts to audio record anyone. I'm not saying it isn't happening, because I know it's happening. Matter of fact, every one of you should be showing property assuming that the seller is watching and listening to you, because they are. The thing that happened in our office, we had a listing agent who said, I didn't know my seller was recording anything. The buyer hung around with the buyer's agent at the end of the showing and asked a whole bunch of questions. The listing agent had all the answers to the question on his voicemail before he asked the seller the questions. The seller had been listening. Jen?
If they do have surveillance equipment, do you just disclose that?
You should disclose it. We actually have a little form in MLS, and we ask them to actually hang a little sign in their house. Let's do it right. I think, I think you should always assume it, but people should know. Let's treat people the way we'd want to be treated. Stephanie?
You said that audio was illegal?
But video you can do without disclosing. Okay? That's the rules in Massachusetts.
Are leading edges slides updated with those as a reminder for us to...
These are the new slides. They're so new that Rob Rimsdell just edited them last night, so they'll come up. All right? Thank you, Rob. I promise to. Now, this sounds perfunctory, like, of course you're going to do this. Guide and advise you through the process, prepare our comprehensive market analysis, present all offers to you. Stop at this one. Stop at this one. They think, of course, all agents are going to present all offers. I wouldn't have this in the slide, except for you don't know what goes on behind your back. You don't understand the bad, naughty, mischievous behavior that goes on with real estate agents who really would like to sell your house yourself and might not present all the offers to you because they'd like to sell it themselves. Just know, when you hire me, you will see all your offers. I think that's a teaching moment that we should take advantage of. I will monitor progress, ensure everything is on track, inform you of obstacles that may threaten the closing, keep an eye on the buyer's loan approval, and prepare for closing to ensure a successful transaction. Hire us if you want strategies to get the best price for your property, superb marketing, great negotiators, and protection throughout the transaction like no other company provides. What does it cost to sell? You need to go over the professional fee, the stamp tax, and how much it's really going to cost at the closing table. Remember, you are not a bank or an attorney. This is it. You should check with your own bank and attorney for real costs. But here's a ballpark. Leading Edge, who we are. Oh, here's all the things that people love. I actually don't use these slides, but there are agents who really want to go in with the company behind them and talk about how awesome we are. We are affiliated with Housing Families. We do nice things. It's nice to mention. And thank you. I look forward to the opportunity to work with you. Leading Edge. And with that, and I forgot to change the name on this, only on the deck, Ramsey, sorry. Ramsey Fretz is going to come up and talk about not how to be a commercial broker, but how to do figure out investment opportunities for all of your clients. Here you go, Rams.
Close enough. Okay. Well, hello everyone again. So this is going to be a bit of a follow-up to our last conversation about commercial real estate, but it's also going to be different. And how it's going to be different is today we're just going to be focusing on how you're actually going to be valuing those investments. Those investments can be a single family. Those can be a 3-family. They can be a piece of land. They can be a commercial building. They could be a parking space in Boston. That doesn't really matter what it is, but there's a lot of different ways to look at value. The way that we usually look at value in residential real estate, I find, is comps. We see what we can find. But the problem is that if you're doing something that has a highest and best use or a future potential or something that simply doesn't have a lot of comps, there's usually not a lot of other ways that people actually know how to value it, and that's what we're going to be going into today. If something doesn't make sense, have me slow down. There's a few formulas, but it's pretty basic stuff in general. Also, we're doing one more piece about suits. It's a little one, and mostly because Linda let me one more time, so I didn't get to talk about it last time. The other stuff that goes along with the suit, and don't worry, this is not going to be nearly as long as the last one, but generally I find that people put on tie bars or they wear cufflinks. Oh, do we have some of that stuff? Oh, look at that. There we go. All of that fun stuff, and they don't know why, and they don't know how they're supposed to wear it, so I'm going to go very, very quickly into it. If your tie is too fat for your lapel, it doesn't make sense. So if you've got about this is a 3-inch collar here, lapel. If you have a tie that's more than 3.5 inches, they look disproportionate, and that's why they don't really make any sense. If you've got a larger one and a thin tie, it also doesn't make sense. People wear tie bars. Tie bars came around in the 1920s because they don't actually put a pin into your tie. Everyone puts them down here because it makes the tie doesn't look like it moves then. That's not how you do it. 2.5 buttons down. That's the general rule. Fun socks. I'm wearing flamingos today, if anyone would like to take a look. I think it's a great thing to do. We don't get to really have a good time with clothing as men most of the time, so it's fun to wear a little bit something exciting. And then lastly, if you're putting something on as a gentleman, that thing should have a purpose of why you're wearing it. Cufflinks hold your shirt together. Tie bar stops your tie from moving. Pocket square, I prefer a little linen. You can hand to someone if they need it. But in general, we're not trying to wear jewelry unless you want to wear jewelry. You're wearing something that's supposed to work with your suit. But moving on to cap rate returns. So the first thing that I always want to look at any single property, and the most important questions, is the first one is, what do we have? What is this property today? The second question, what could it be? What is that future potential? What is that highest and best use? And then, of course, what is it going to take to get there? So if I have this flip that I just did, and by the way, I was sitting on a beach in New Jersey with my wife, hiding under a blanket because I saw my little MLS ping. I saw the property come on in my neighborhood. It came on at a price that didn't make sense. So I called the broker. I asked some general questions. I said, does it have floors? Does it have walls? Is there anything crazy I should know about it? And so it didn't. Everything would seem okay. And so I bought it. I bought it on the beach. They signed the offer that same day. I hadn't seen it until about a week later. We did close on it about 35 days after that, and then I resold it another 32 days after that. So I only owned the thing for about 2.5 months, including closing time. But what I always wanted to look at here is, I knew specifically that it wasn't going to take that much to change this. And so when I'm looking at what it is today and what it could be, the actual difference there is quite simple. And you're going to see from some of the other examples I have that it can get much more complex, and it can be a little bit more than doing your comps on a beach quickly. So first one, this is the most important formula. This is the pulse. This is the heart rate. This is I would say the most important thing that you can physically know. If you just walk away from this class understanding how to do a cap rate on your phone, you're going to be fine. That really ultimately is about 80% of what you're going to need. So the capitalization rate indicates the property's intrinsic, natural, and unlevered rate of return. What does that really mean? As an overall investment, as a $1 million property that makes X amount a year, $100,000 a year, that's a 10% cap rate. That's a 10% rate of return on the overall value of the property. Looking at the actual formula, net operating income divided by that current market value gets you your cap rate. The cap rate is the way that you can actually value this property against other investments. So if it's a 6% return, which is a 6 cap, you know that, well, the market average in the stock market is 7.5 or 8. Last year it was 23. The year before that it was negative 12 because the end of 2018 had a really bad year. So you can start to weigh that cap rate versus other investments that you could make. So a high cap rate. People often assume that the higher the cap rate, the better, the larger the return, right? But ultimately, that doesn't actually correlate because it's not about the rate of return. It's about that rate of return combined with how risky that asset is. And so if I have a extremely low cap rate, it's a much safer investment. Think a blue chip stock. So think something like a government bond or a CD or something like that. Newbury Street in Boston has some of the lowest cap rates in the state. They're under 3%, usually 2.8, 2.9% return. That basically means that if you put down 25% on this property, it will be a negative return on a monthly basis. But they're also not looking at that property, most investors, as a cash play. They're looking at that investment as a long-term play, growth and stability. So if I want to go get my 20% return, sure, I could go to the startups, I could invest in Bitcoin, I could put it all on black. Of course, I'm going to have a much higher potential return with those, but that risk profile is also going to be much higher. That make sense to everyone? All right. Cash on cash return. This is a very specific thing to real estate and very few other investments. A cash on cash return is very similar to your cap rate, but it's focused around the actual cash you have to put into a property. Linda, if you were my stockbroker and I said, Linda, I'd like $1,000 of Apple stock, would you be willing to buy that or get that for me?
Sure.
Yeah, I only have $200. Yeah, exactly. No, you can have $200 of Apple stock. But in real estate, if you go and you say, I have 200 or 250 bucks, of course you can go have that $1 million investment. And that's so important because your cash on cash return measures the annual return investors made on the property in relation to the amount of mortgage paid during the same year. And so what you're looking at there is, if I put in 50 grand into a property, I'm not looking at that overall cap rate as what's my return. I'm saying, out of my 50 grand, what did that 50 grand get me back? And so if you put down 100,000 and you got 50,000 back, that's a 50% return in your cash, but your cap rate's going to be much lower. And there's a formula for that. Your annual pre-tax cash flow, total cash invested. It's that simple. Yep.
I run into situations where I have like little old ladies who live there 25 years, have great property, need tons of work and all of this.
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea what the operating costs are.
Yep.
Either their kids are taking care of it or they're not taking care of it. That's the reason.
And you're talking about a multifamily or something that's an investment,
Yes.
right? Okay.
I mean, say 4 or 5 years.
Perfect. Yeah, whatever it is.
How is there a way, or how do you determine what the operating costs are?
We're going to get there.
We are going to get there, but what I will say, and I have a whole slide about that, so I'm glad you brought it up. But what I will say is that you can do a rule of thumb of between 20 and 25%. You can always find the taxes. You can always find some of the base insurance costs and stuff like that. And then from there, you're just trying to glean, is it separate utilities, is it combined, and you can make your estimates. Most of the time, though, in that situation, which is so funny, is that you're not going to be doing a cap rate on that, because usually those...
See, they didn't hear the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so explain what the issue
So the
is.
question was trying to actually, I'm sorry about that. The question was trying to figure out what are your actual overall expenses and how do you actually get to, because you're basically trying to find that net operating income. And so actually trying to find that net operating income out of someone who might not know or be very clear about their expenses. But we will be breaking that down further in a couple slides. So your current market value equals your net operating income divided by your expected cap rate in the market. What I'm doing here is I'm taking X, Y, and Z, and I'm flipping around. If you have 2 out of the 3 parts of the formula, you always have the third. Sometimes you have to multiply, sometimes you have to divide, but that's it. If you wanted to put Y in there, you've got, and you've solved for Y, as long as you have X and Z, you'd be fine. Again, you could flip it for a third time. If you're trying to get to that fair market net operating income, which is a different way of thinking about it, but imagine you have a property where it's currently completely vacant, there's not a lot of rental comps, maybe it's commercial, maybe it's residential, whatever it may be, and you still go onto MLS, you look at your comps and everything else, but it's not quite enough information. You can take your expected asking price, and then you can take what is the average cap rate in that market, and we're going to go into how you find that as well in a minute, but you can take those 2 pieces there, and if you times that, so if you did your asking price of $1 million times 0.06%, you're going to get to what you should be making as a monthly rent and as a yearly rent, as an estimate. Now this is just an estimate, but it's another way to try to figure out if how you're valuing a property is going to make sense to investors out there. So this is one of my standard kind of pro formas. I do blended pro formas, I do future valuation pro formas. They're usually 8, 10 pages. They could be more than that, they could be less. I used to work for a debt and equity firm, and so we can go through pages and pages of this. All of this, everything that I do, everything on a giant spreadsheet that I could print out for you, I have to also be able to do on a napkin. If I cannot make the formulas and if I can't make the numbers make sense writing them on a bar napkin, then they're never going to make sense up here. Now, this stuff is important if you're really going into the nitty-gritty of a very large, complex investment. But for the most of it, it comes down to the gut check of, does this investment make sense compared to other investments that are similar in the market? So this looks terrifying, but most of all, you really don't need it. So I'm going to go into a specific project that I worked with a investor and a developer, actually with Linda and Allison as well. So I'm just going to go through this, and so we can kind of go through a breakdown of how we'd value this. So it's a 6-unit, 5 one-beds, 1 2-bed, 2013 construction, had garage parking for everyone, and it was fully separate utilities. This is very good because we know with the separate utilities, we're going to have a pretty high net operating income. We're not going to have a lot of expenses pulled out besides taxes and insurance. So let's go through the cap rate example on this. So our gross rate income is the 1-bed's rent for 16, the 2-bed is 2,200. That's 10,200 monthly, or 122,400 yearly. We're going to take out our expenses. I kept the expenses pretty straightforward for this one. We've got taxes, water, sewer, maintenance, snow plowing, common area maintenance, 3% rental loss factored in for a total of 23,500, or your pretty standard 20%. So your net operating income, 98,900. Call it about even $100,000 a year in net operating income. Expected fair market value is that 98.9 divided by a 6 cap. I would say that in a Melrose investment, a 6% return is, I would say, a little bit lower, maybe about average. You see things in the 5s. You also see returns in those high 6s into the 7s. I think this is a pretty, I would say, conservative cap rate return. Now, let's go through cap rates one more time quickly and about where those numbers came from, like that first slide I went over. So if this was a 7 cap, it would be a slightly riskier investment than a 6 cap. And so that 7% return would mean that the actual property value had to be lower. Because this is newer construction, because we know that it's easy to rent, it's a very modern space, we always fill it up quickly with tenants, we only have a 3% expected loss every single year, we know that we can drop that cap rate down because it is more of that blue chip stock. Does that make sense for everyone? Any questions, any blank faces? Doing all right, all right. So what if we did a 5.5% return? Well, it's amazing. So that 0.5% difference in cap rate moves by about $150,000 in sale value. So we'd be able to sell this for a lot more if we think we could get to a 5.5 cap for the expected cap rate. What if we went to a 6.5? Moves in the other direction dramatically. And that's how quickly and that's how small these percentages can be to make monumental changes in actual value. So we looked at the property first from that lens. What is our cap rate return if we sold it just as a multifamily with those current rents in place, with our net operating income? Of course, before we actually want to sell the property, we want to look at what's the actual conversion into condos play, and we make sure that doesn't make more sense, or maybe that's the direction to go. So we have an average sale price of $300K per unit. These are only 500 square foot units. They're extremely small. So it's a very, I would say, lower price than expected for Melrose, but it is a very, very small space. So we have that $1.8 million sellout. So most likely it's going to sell for about $100,000 more than as a multifamily. But then, of course, we have to factor in lost rent. That's very important to do. If you're going to get a 6-family and you're going to empty it and you're going to turn it into condos, you're probably going to have at least 6 months of lost rent in there. That's 60 grand. So you have to factor that loss in up front. Also, you have to factor in the carrying cost for the owner. And then, of course, the conversion cost. This one actually was spec'd with plans in place to be condos, so it was a little bit cheaper. But in general, you have attorney fees, you have to get the architects involved, you're going to spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 in most cases to do that. So make that $60,000 into $80,000. And then the complexity and risk of sales. As a multifamily, if the sale falls apart 50 days in, my client just keeps collecting rent. It doesn't really affect him besides the fact that he's going to lose that money to do something else with. But as a conversion, all of a sudden, if some sales don't go through or it takes longer than expected, he's really going to start to feel some loss. And because of that, we ultimately decided, I think we sold it for $175 which was a pretty good number for the property. We decided not to condo convert, but if I hadn't been able to walk through that with them, I wouldn't have been able to tell him which direction to lean, and he wouldn't have been able to accurately say which direction he was comfortable with. And because we walked through that, had a cup of coffee, went through the cap rate, went through the sellout value, he was the one who made the decision, and we were able to move forward. Here's a much more complex example, and I only say complex because it is still very basic math and numbers, but it's just a little bit more of a highest and best use potential. So this is a lot that Bill Butler and I found. It was not our listing. We just knew of the property. We knew the person was willing to sell. He was not willing to have a listing broker, so we were going to be representing that developer. This is a 544 square foot lot. It's RC zoning in Somerville. That's residential 3. Every single zoning code is different for every single town, but basically it means you can have some mixed use, retail on the first floor. You can usually go up about 3 to 4 stories. We thought it was prime for redevelopment. And it was currently an auto body rented for $3,500 per month, triple net, and that triple net cost means that that auto body was paying for all the taxes and insurance and everything else. So we have the as-is value, that first question I asked everyone, which is, what do we have today? Well, what we have today is a cap rate return of probably about 6%. Somerville has a lower cap rate. It's a stronger investment. It's more blue chip, like I said. So usually we see caps in the 5s. But because this was a really tough lot, because it had some issues, because it had 21Es and all these different things, we set it as a simple 6 cap. Your 3,500 times 12 is 42,000. Divided by 0.06 gets you to an expected sale value of 700,000. But we weren't looking at this to say, let's do a investment hold. We were looking at this as a development play. So what did we think that the zoning potential was? Well, first, we had a FAR ratio of about 2 to 1. It was a little bit less than that, but it's pretty close. Floor area ratio is if you have a 10,000 square foot lot and the floor area ratio is 1, you can have a 10,000 square foot building. You can't use the whole lot, of course, because there's setback requirements and everything else. But in general, it's a way to make sure that you know how much you can basically build on the land. Now, if you have a really small piece of land, it doesn't mean that you get to still build at a 2 to 1 ratio, because you have to have setbacks on the front, setbacks on the side, all of these different requirements. And at the very end of it, all of a sudden you realize you only have this little plot in the very center where you could actually build something, and you're only allowed to go up 4 stories. So you know it's not going to work. But in general, the floor area ratio gives you a good sense of how much you can build. We thought we could have a 4-story structure. We wanted to do retail on the first floor. That was also an expectation for the street. And parking, we knew we needed 1 parking space per residential unit. Mostly, and this is happening in most markets now, as parking becomes a little bit tighter. If you don't have parking, the project's not going to go forward. So we knew we had to figure that out as well. This was going to be a special permit required from Somerville. Special permits from Somerville are not easy, ever, but you also need to make sure you have the right team. If you're from an outside market, assuming that you're going to get a special permit, and you don't have the right attorneys, you don't have the right architect, it's just not going to happen. So you have to make sure you have the right team behind you. But special permit here is also very important, because you have, I would say on the 2 spectrums, you have special permits in the middle, which basically means that it can happen, but the town will have to approve it, and you'll have to get the neighbors to approve it. I'm going to be knocking on doors and having coffee and making sure they're comfortable with what we're building. On the other side, you have as of right. And then on that far, far side on the other end, you have this is not going to happen, and it's a full redevelopment. It's not even within any of the zoning codes, and you would have to basically get a whole other litany of approval. Special permit's the way that we want to go. It sounds like you'd prefer to have as of right use. But the problem is that when you have as of right use, everyone wants to do it. And so if this was an as of right 6-unit development, that sale price is going to go up dramatically, because that special permit is the risk. And if we think we can stomach the risk, that's how we know we're going to be able to get a better return. So this is what we got approved. It's a nice little retail on the first floor. We wound up going up a couple levels. It had a bit of a triangle, and you'll see in a couple slides how we had to design it on a very funky lot. We got the parking right in the rear with that retail in the front and an elevator as well. This was a typical floor plan of how we were able to break up the units. We did change the design a little bit at the end, but this was the original go, and then this is how we actually designed it on the lot. What's important to remember here is that if you look at these standard requirements for, say, setbacks, this meets none of them. Because, look, we're inches from the top on the corner, but that's how we figured out the parking. And so when you're talking about that special permit, everything is a give and take with the town, with the attorneys, with the neighbors. And so you need to make sure that you're asking for enough that you don't think you're going to get it, but you're going to be in the realm where the project still makes sense. So we looked at the total sellout value. 6 residential units, blended sellout of $750 per square foot. When you're selling a larger project, even a 6 unit, I like to do blended values. I don't particularly care if one unit sells for $620 or one sells for $670. What I need to know is what is that average price per square foot going to sell out. And if that average price per square foot doesn't make sense, then the project's not going to make sense. So we had a total residential sellout of about $5.2 million. The commercial unit sale, we expected that to be about $350,000. Not a huge value add, but still certainly helpful. So we had a total sellout of 5.5. Construction costs. We assumed we could build this for about $200 a square foot, and that's not just the structure, but that's the other pieces that go into building that before you even start. In a lot of markets, you can get away with 150 if you've got land and you've got utilities connected and you're in a pretty simple building environment. Somerville is much more complex. Downtown Boston can be $400 a square foot, but we assumed 200 was pretty reasonable for the developers we were working with. That's about a cost of $1,675 to build. So if we look at our return on equity breakdown, so you've got a 5.5 sellout, you've got construction at, call it 1,750, just about, after a little bit of an overage expense. $250,000 for the architects. That's high, but this was a very complex and it took a very long time. Attorneys about $50,000, brokerage $275. Congratulations, us. Additional closing costs about 25 grand. 21E cleanup estimated at 300,000. It's the one piece I didn't mention from before. The reason this property was still available, the reason it was floating around is because it had a car repair shop and a dry cleaner on it. And if anyone knows what that means, it means that you're going to spend a fortune cleaning that soil. If the dirty soil has gone over to the neighbors, you know that you have to clean up their yards too. Once you start a 21E cleanup, the expenses can become astronomical. We budgeted under $500,000 was the goal for this cleanup. So we had a net of 2,890. Now this is a net if we paid $0 for the land. And we're backing out of this. We're looking at this from every single angle and we're trying to figure out if this deal makes sense. And so what does that tell me? Well, at 2,890, and my clients want to make some real money on this, especially because of the massive amount of risk with that 21E cleanup. So if we have an expected return of 25%, a sellout of 5.5, my clients want to make about 1.4 million. That means there's about 1.5 left that we could pay for this land and still hit our target numbers. Now these are target numbers that, if anything goes wrong, we're in a lot more trouble. But of course, we're trying to build in 25% as well, and that's a pretty large margin. We wound up paying with other competition. We wound up paying $390,000 for it. And the reason for that is because, and I really should have said they did. I should have probably bought in as well on this one. But the reason is because everyone was so terrified of what it was, didn't properly look at what it could be, and didn't factor in what it would take to get there. We didn't even build it. We actually sold it to another developer for $1.85 million. My clients made about $1 million in about 9 months by only putting in about 600. And that's an amazing numbers. It's a home run. They're not supposed to happen this way very often. But what I challenge everyone to do is the next time you look at your 3-family that has older units, a little bit rougher, or it's got that large carriage house in the back, stop just looking at it as the comps and start looking at it as, what can this be? Can I sell that future potential without even actually doing it? Can I do a blended value of saying the rent should be $3,000 a unit and there are only 2, so we're blending them at 25 and trying to project that value? Always look at what it is, what it can be, and what it's going to take to get there. Thanks.
Oh, hold on, you're not going anywhere. 2 things. So talk about your strategy when you hire attorneys for one of these projects, Ramsey.
Is this filming? It is, okay. So you need to have the best local attorney for every single project. If I was going to do a project in Melrose, I'm going to hire Bob Bell. But Bob Bell is not a Somerville attorney. Same thing as when you hire your favorite attorney, you also need to know, is there an attorney that usually is involved on the other side who would be fighting you on this? And can you put them on retainer? They get paid their $10,000 to sit into the background and then they're actually not allowed to go against it. But you have to look at the whole package. Does anyone know who Peter Quinn is? Somerville architect. Peter Quinn's not cheap, But what Peter Quinn is he's a proven success. When you go in front of the Somerville Zoning Board, they know Peter Quinn's quality. And so if you hire him, you have a much better chance of getting through it. I did another project with another broker in our company that took about 3 times as long to permit, only 2 units, because we used outside attorneys. And it was amazing how that was different.
Let's go back to the napkin.
Yes.
The napkin is more important. I mean, you kind of went fast over the napkin.
Can I do an example of the napkin?
I think you should napkin it
Does anyone
out.
have a multifamily they recently sold?
At least 3 units. 3, 4, 5, or 6 would be great. Yuki. Wait, so it's a 4-family? 4-family, and the total rents are
10,650.
$10,650 a month.
So we got $127,800 a month.
Yep.
Is it separate utilities or is it all in one system? So it's probably about an extra 7% on average for utilities. So I'm going to do 127,800 times 0.73. So we've got a net operating income of about 93,294. And then where's this? Oh, it's a fantastic location. So we've got a really low cap rate because it is more of that blue chip investment. So I'd say probably about a 5.2% cap rate. So if I do divided by 0.052, I could probably sell that for between 1,794 and 185 is my guess. Yeah. Yeah, so same range. Yeah, I mean, when we're talking about less than 5% there, not by knowing anything. So when you're talking to your clients on the phone, you're talking to that new investor and he says he has a 3-unit somewhere. You don't have to, you're driving, pull over, you should pull over, do your expected return. And if I called you and you had never talked to me before and you told me those things and I was within 50 grand of what you paid, that's kind of an impressive thing to do. And all it is division. One little formula that takes a couple seconds. And so what I actually, before I step away, I should say, take those X, Y, and Z, take the net operating income, take your expected cap rate, and take your sale price, and just play around with the formula. Move it around, move the next thing into the solve for Y box, and then you'll have a really good, I guess, understanding of it pretty quickly.
Right. Practice.
How do you know what an average cap rate for a market is?
Good. Glad you brought that up because I forgot to talk about that. So as
The
you
average
go,
cap rate for market is?
the average cap rate
here.
for our market, okay, so the average cap rate, how do you actually know what the cap rate's going to be? Through sites like CoStar and stuff like that, you can find averages of what has sold, but I find those usually quite wrong. Mostly it's a gut check. I know downtown Boston, a cap rate's going to be in the 4% to 5% range at the very highest. I know as I go one town out, becoming a little bit less blue chip, becoming a little bit higher risk, I know that Somerville is going to be maybe a 4.9 to 5.2. I know Cambridge is going to be even a little bit lower than that. Then I know that Melrose is going to start to get into the 6. I also know that one of our agents is Mary Shimemi. She's connected to someone. Where's Mary?
Right.
Hi, Mary. So the gentleman in your life, he carries, does he have a gun when he collects his rent? So
No, he brings me along.
there we go. So, but he has to show up every single month on the 1st, and he has to say the bank wants its money because most of his investments are in Springfield, correct? And so when you're thinking about a Springfield cap rate, it sounds so good on paper. It sounds like you're going to get that 12 to 15% return where you can't get anywhere else in the market. But also, if I show up like this asking for money, I'm not going to get it. So I have to factor in a huge amount of loss and risk. And also, the same person who buys the place in 2010 in Springfield for $100,000, it's now worth $150. But the person who bought the same $800,000 investment in Somerville is now worth 2.4. So you have to look at the actual cash return every single month, but you're also looking at what's that growth.
Was that great? Thank you very much,
Right.
Ramsey.
Thanks.
All right. So we've seen Ramsey. We went to the house, right? We went through our listing presentation. Then we actually took notes in the house. We know what improvements it needs. We now know how we're going to write our description of property. And we're coming back to see the seller. And I've developed a new presentation. I've taken stuff out of the original listing presentation because I thought we should divide it up. The first time you meet with a seller, let's be happy and peppy and bursting with love and not negative about price, right? And when you come back on the second appointment, they will not hear a word you say until you mention the price. That's what they want to know. And I'm not going to take time today because that's like a whole nother seminar on how to price and giving people a big range. But I've changed my mind about my bell curve. I used to tell everyone, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you know, we have this, you know, standard deviation bell curve, and your chances of getting a lot of money are the same as getting less money. And fair market value is somewhere in between. Changed my mind a little bit. So let's walk through a proposed presentation that you would give after you sat there and gave them the price range. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, your house is worth somewhere between $650 and $750. Right? What number do they hear? They all think it's worth $750. That's important that you know that. They all remember the high number. They always forget the low number. So you've gone through all of your comps. You've gone through your absorption rates. You've shown them all the things that have helped you arrive at this number of the competition. But let's show them a little presentation, because don't they feel better if they get to pick the price? So let's set them up for picking the right price. So this is what I've come up with, all right? Today's buyers know how to get data. They know what they can get for their money. If your property doesn't provide value for the money, they know it. Is that true? All right, so here's all the new slides. What is the right price? The right price is the difference between a quick sale and a long slog. This is so important, we're emphasizing it again. The right price is the difference between a walk in the park and trudging uphill in a storm. I want people to visually experience the walk in the park and the trudging uphill in the storm, because that is exactly what happens. Anybody who's been in real estate since 2013, like Susan has, doesn't understand what it's going to be like when houses don't sell. The biggest listing loser was still selling because the market was catching up. When things start to slow down, when absorption rates drop, when months of inventory climb, pricing is going to be key. So, you're going to tell sellers there's 4 factors in their success. And good news is you control 3 of them, all right? The one thing you can't control is your location. You can't move it. You can't add more land to it if that's what you're competing against. You can't control it. But good news is you can control the marketing, because you're going to pick the agent who's going to do the best marketing. Condition, you control that. You can sell it as is, or you can make it market ready. You control it. You control the price. You can put a smart price on it, an unrealistic price, or you could be delusional. Some of you won't use delusional, but I like it, and I'd use it every day. I'm setting the bar for really crazy, because we see really crazy prices. But ready? This is not you telling them they're delusional. It's on your chart, right? This is something that's already been predetermined by your crazy brokers. One of the analogies you want to hold very tight to is this analogy. A lot of people you deal with own stock. Facebook is trading for $242 a share. If I call Christine, my stockbroker, and say, I want to sell my Facebook stock. I know it's trading at $242, but can you get me $275, Christine? What is Christine going to tell me? Why? Why not? Because that's what the market will give. Look historically how the housing market and the stock market have been in parallel. It's a thing. And what we want to establish is that selling your property is a commodity. It's like a stock. It will only trade at the value someone will pay for it. If Campbell Soup is $42 this morning, I can't call my stockbroker and say, I'd like to sell it for $60. Ask them, do you own stock? Can you call your stockbroker and ask them what they have? What's it trading at? Ask them. Make them do this exercise. This is leading them to where they need to go mentally. Really important. And this is what I'm so damn proud of. This is like my HITA boot camp. I've devised a new bell curve. I hope you guys are as excited as I am. You know, when it's time to sell, we all know that some sellers strike out A lot of them get premium value, some of them get fair market value, and some of them totally hit home runs. We all know where you want to be. But it's not just price where people experience a strikeout, fair market, premium value, and home run. It's also time. Some people totally strike out. They're on the market forever. And some people hit a home run and sell it in that first week. It's also emotional capacity. Some people really strike out. They are totally drained. This is one of the most exhausting processes. Remember I said the first day of boot camp? Buying and selling your house is 100 points on your stress scale, equivalent to death of a spouse. Remind them about the emotional capacity of selling your house and how much they can control this. Lastly, also, their mental and physical energy. When you have your house on the market for a long time, you have sleepless nights. You're second guessing everything. It's so stressful. It's full of anxiety that can be avoided if you make better decisions going forward. You can strike out or hit a home run on mental and physical energy. So, I made a little bell curve. This is the magic here of how does this happen? How do people wind up either striking out, getting their fair market value, their premium value, or their home run? Here you go. I even have little moving arrows. Ready? Strikeout. So I did, what's a typical strikeout? These are typical, right? But I think it's going to explain where we are. The initial price, much too high for condition. Next, buyers and agents shun property because seller is unrealistic. Next, seller rejects first good offer because it's too low.
Or it's first.
Hold on.
Just because it's first.
Just because it's first. But that's why we're saying to them right up front, right? Now, it sells for significantly less than first offer or has only one offer after very long marketing time. This is the standard scenario. Are you having visions of Great Heron right now? This is practically that experience, like walking through that with you, watching you agonize for months and months and months on that property, inspired this entire thing. Just so you know, Ray. Thank you for sharing. By the way, Ray, there wasn't an agent in our company that did not know that pretty yellow house on Great Heron Pond was not available. It was on so many Facebook posts. He had more soirees. He advertised it everywhere. He dragged people there, whatever he could. What was the starting price, Ray?
1099.
1099, right. What was their first offer, Ray?
980.
980, way too low. We're not taking that. What was their second offer, Ray?
970.
970, we're not taking that, way too low. What was their last and final offer?
910.
910. What did it sell for?
910.
910.
Well, the low bid was 880, and then we got them up.
88, we brought it up. This happens, and you all need a story exactly like Ray's. Now, if I may, Ray is an engineer by training. I understand where Ray got everything in his price. Square footage, it was a beautiful house. It's painted yellow, that's the color people liked the most. Had all that going for it. But it was a little dated. And people thought, remember, they picked everything out that they liked exactly the way they liked it. It made sense on paper. I got to give that to Ray. But Ray is so scarred from this experience, he will go forward on every other property a little bit differently going forward. And by the way, remember, the market's just starting to turn. Before it would have sold, someone would have come in, it would have moved. But in Essex County, we're seeing fewer showings. Now, the market is not softening. It's just not crazy double-digit appreciation, which we are perceiving as slowing down, when in fact, it's not even normal yet. It's still that good. The rest of the country is crying with jealousy over how good we have it. Now, here's where the bell curve differs from my past thinking. See how fair market's to the left of center? Here's what I would say is normally happening with fair market value. It's priced correctly. It's average condition, and you usually see those houses as where the kitchen is dated. Kitchens sell houses. Kitchens sell houses is the #1 draw. So I'm putting them in fair market category. Look at fair market value. See how we're trying to keep them from thinking they're going to get the $750 if they're not going to do the work or update their countertops and paint the cabinets, etc. Premium value. Premium value is price sharp. It's on-trend paint, kitchens and baths. It's decluttered, staged well, and buyers perceive value and pay top dollar. That's where you get premium value. Now, what constitutes a home run? How do you get to home run category? Well, home runs are owner and agent prepare home for market masterfully. If you want to see the most beautiful preparation of homes, and you can afford to do it, they're in Cambridge. Lauren Holleran is going to be speaking to us next week. Look at Lauren Holleran's website. She doesn't use real estate photographers. She uses like restaurant, fashion photographers. They're the most beautiful listing photos I have ever seen. But she's spending thousands for each listing. But she's selling average price point of almost $2 million. It starts to make sense. But how can we get our photographers to understand that? I think we all need to start driving that photography. Next, price property a tad under market value. The whole price is right theory. Sellers do everything their agent tells them to do and have a pinch of luck. Let's admit it, some people get a little lucky. And let's let them know that they can do everything and still only wind up in premium, because you got to get a little lucky sometimes. And then lastly, competitive bidding results in above market price. I will send the bell curve slides out with your email that goes out with this, all right? So you all get the bell curve slides, all of them. Okay, glad to send them. By the way, if you're having trouble opening your virtual boot camp, it doesn't play on your phone. It'll only play on your laptop. And I'm adding extra things. Read those emails. People are sending great things. I'm adding cool things. By the way, the one that went out this morning has the whole suit thing, in case you want it. All right? So, now let's talk about the home inspection with our sellers. Expect buyers to want to win something. Is that true? So, 4 years ago, I still can hear Marcus Collins from our Lexington office saying, are people still doing home inspections? He was in Lexington. Nobody was doing home inspections. You were dead on arrival if you had a home inspection. They're making a comeback because they're the only offer. Or people feel like they're paying so much they just can't waive it. It is important to set the stage before you set the price, that they understand that people who are negotiating a home inspection aren't necessarily negotiating on the problems of the house. This is a paradigm shift. They're using that as an excuse to readjust the price. If they feel like they got a great deal, they don't often care about things. The minute they feel like they paid top dollar, they want to readjust the price of the house. So you're going to set the stage. Ready? Set aside some money. We will not respond to negotiations until we know everything the buyer wants. Never, ever do the death by 1,000 cuts. Nothing worse than an agent saying, oh, they're asking the seller to do this. You negotiate that with the seller, then you give them something, and then what happens? They ask for more. Make sure you never negotiate anything until you're negotiating everything. And whenever your seller accepts an offer, you're going to say, listen, if there's still a home inspection clause, you are going to say, listen, back in the day when I was still on the ground, I'd say, set aside $1,000, right? You're going to lose it after home inspection. Now I'd set aside $5,000. Set aside $5,000, right? Good news is if not, it's not money you were expecting. Now you can go on vacation. You can buy new furniture for your new house. Mentally set them up to be willing to negotiate at this early stage. That way they're not mad at the buyers. We're setting up, it's typical for buyers to want to negotiate. because they're already insulted. There's nothing wrong with their house. Whatever the home inspector found, they've been living with for a long time, right? So it's really critical right at the listing appointment to say, this is how we're going to work this. Then you're going to remind them when they accept the offer again. That's how you're setting yourself up for success. I want to define and talk about location a lot. That's Benjamin Franklin. That's the statue that's on School Street in Boston in front of the original Boston Latin School. I didn't know Benjamin Franklin went to Boston Latin. How about that? Boston Latin was open in 1635. The Pilgrims arrived in like 1620. First school. I mention this with location because it is the #1 driver for buyers is schools. Right? We're going to talk about schools in a second, but I want your seller to understand all the components of location on their second meeting when they're determining price. Just put this in the background. So let's start with views. And before I do this, let's talk about your own views. Has any of you ever walked into a luxury hotel lobby and went, I don't even want to go to my room. It is so beautiful here. I can see the ocean outside. This is gorgeous. The light fixtures are great. There's orchids everywhere. It feels good. I want you to understand that feeling when it comes to houses. One observation I make is that so many developers in new construction are cheaping out on windows, right? Teeny windows, not enough windows, right? I'm going to tell you why those houses don't feel good is because they can't see outside. You know why people love this room? Because we set the shades, we don't want to distract you, but people love to look outside. I live in a 1-bedroom condo. I have 23 windows. Because it makes my little condo feel magnificent. Views, windows, make you feel good. Anybody here have a desk that looks like a war zone? All right? Okay, we're going to go back to the Oreo and milk slide. Part of the reason you don't want to go to work there is it's just chaos. Psychologically, it's killing you. I know when Mary comes home, she has to get her stuff all together. I come in from vacation. I don't care how late my plane is in. I unpack. I can't have my house crazy. My kids make fun of me. They call my house the museum. There's no crap in my house. You can come visit me anytime unless I'm in the middle of a project. It's put together. It's how I can think clearly. It's how I feel good in my house. And this is why all of America makes the big mistake of thinking they're decorating by going to the Christmas tree shop and adding more stuff to their house, when our views are so much better when they're decluttered and clean. All to staging. Views are everything in real estate. And so that's why the penthouse at Millennium Tower has all that glass. Or why when you love your neighborhood, when you're looking at pretty houses all around you. Those views at a house add a lot to the value. Additionally, a pretty, look at the brownstones in Back Bay, the leafy green streets, it's pretty. Or maybe you have a wooded view. Real estate's at a real premium when everything around it's beautiful. Sellers need to understand that as much as their house is, when the neighbors are crappy, when there's junk cars someplace, all that affects their value. What are their views even there on a simple street in Methuen? It affects value. That's desirability. That's location. Schools. I already said #1 driving force. It's why it costs twice as much to live in Lexington, Wellesley, Belmont, Weston. Those have good schools. People will go to the system where they can afford the best schools. That's where their price point is. Schools drive behavior. They need to understand that. It's why when, I don't remember, is there a Hopedale? Is that a town in Massachusetts? Hopedale? Okay, one of our agents it looked like Downton Abbey. It was the most amazing castle-like structure for only $2 million. I mean, the size of a little condo. you know, on Newbury Street, but couldn't sell it. Why? School, but it's just it's location. It's all the amenities. It's everything about it. Sure, it was a deal, but you have to give that away. First of all, because $2 million buyers don't even look in Hopedale. Right? Right. I don't even know where Hopedale is, but it's far away. Right. Busy in traffic, right? Look in Cambridge. You can be in Central Square, or you can be in one of the, you know, right off Brattle Street. It makes a difference. Understand all those factors when it comes time for location. How close you are to amenities. Amenities are everything. You know, do you have an artisanal coffee shop? Cafe Nero's come into town. It actually puts people on the map. Is there a dog park? Fido wants to go and play. Is it near transportation? Is it near a yoga studio? Fitness places? Your walk score? All of those things are so important when it comes time to think about location. So that's a package. Location is a package. They need to understand that. You know, in my little town of Melrose, we have, you know, an area that is just like it's a different world. It's not, you can't walk to anything. The rest of Melrose is walkable. Those houses never sell for as much money because you can't walk downtown. You have to get in your car. It changes. All right. Everybody, and this is what they're going to throw in your face when you're in a beautiful location. Every seller says it's all about location, location, location. I'm going to tell you right now, price trumps location. Because how many gorgeous houses in beautiful locations aren't selling? And the only reason they're not selling is you need to own this. There was a very interesting discussion on lab coat agents. This agent went on and said, listen, it's not the price. Everything else about this house is perfect, but it's not selling. Do you know what 465 comments were? It's the price. But it's so hard when it's your client because you want to believe in it. What happens is we're rooting for our clients. We want them to get the money. I remember being nervous when I went out of town. My mom liked to work with buyers. She always felt like sellers, you had to sell a bad house. But buyers, you could find them a good house. She liked that. And inevitably, whenever I went on vacation and came back, she had put 1 or 2 listings on that were overpriced. My mother was rooting for them. I knew it. She wanted it. My mother wanted it. God bless her, but then it took me so long to unwind it. You got to get strong on price. You need to help get them there, and this presentation should help. Some dangers of overpricing. You lose your new car smell. You're only new to the market once. Mary, I'm going to steal your line. So I was on the phone with a guy in Belgium I never met. He asked me to sell his condo in Medford. And he said, Linda, all the other ones are selling over 3. I said, all the other ones have new kitchens. They've been painted, you know. No. You're at like 250 on a good day? No. And he said, Linda, can't we just try it? And I said, you know, your initial price is like your virginity. You only have it once. That's it, right? That's it. That's all it goes. And that's the way it works, right? You lose your new car smell. Demand and interest wane after 21 days. After 3 weeks, if you don't have that price adjustment in, it's not that it's too late. It's never too late to adjust, but you've probably already lost money. Dropping price later is often too little, too late. The psychology of pricing is important, and here we go into our pricing like the price is right. Remember how to win. If you win if you guess the price closest to the value without going over. It's the same in real estate. You lose if you go over. You attract the most buyers if it's priced on the money, and you sell faster. According to Zillow, great stat everyone needs to know is houses that have a price reduction sell for 4% less than they would have without a price reduction. The one thing Zillow is good for is they know what everyone's asking and what the averages are in the market. When they came up with that stat, that's like the whole commission practically, or at least 80% of it or more, right? That's a great stat. If you need a price reduction, you're probably going to lose money. Key pricing factors, we all know these. Location, square feet, you can talk about the age, competing new construction. So many people have pretty houses, but when you are competing against new construction, that has today's gorgeous white shaker cabinets and subway tile backsplash and all the right colors, you're dead. As a matter of fact, that's exactly what happened, completely renovated. That's what happened in Ray's case. They were competing against something that was just sexier. Sex sells. Kitchens, as I said, paint, staging, bathrooms. All right. Appraisers use comparable properties sold within 3 months. This is a good reminder because the house that your seller is thinking about is a good comp, sold a year and a half ago. Just a little kind reminder. Tara, right? No.
Yes.
Yes.
So just, I've heard people say, you can't price a home too low, market will bear market
Yeah.
value, but, you mentioned going into a normal market or a shifting
Yeah.
market, pricing right
Can you price too low? Okay, so Debbie Miller says it all the time, you cannot price too low. You can price too low if you're going to accept the first offer in 3 minutes, right? But if you allow time for the market to work, everybody to come in, you're going to hold offers. If you're putting that thing in the MLS on Wednesday and you're going through a series of open houses and you're looking at offers Tuesday at noon, you can't. Now, if it doesn't sell, it might take longer to sell. Now, I have a rule of thumb for pricing, and I stole this from my mother, but she was right. You'll know whether you need to do a price reduction based on this. Hold your price if people are coming back for second showings. It might not be selling, or even if you've had bad offers. That means you're appealing to the market, right? But if you're not getting second showings, no one's coming back, you're not getting any bad offers, you're overpriced. And that you'd know that in that 21-day window, probably sooner. That has been fail-safe for me. Fail-safe. Nobody's coming back. You talk to the buyers, they went to something else, I've seen that twice. They're not coming back. You're not. That's a great, mantra to hold on to. And this is because Rose Iorello from our Boston department has a sense of humor. She said, I put this little meme in for you, Linda. If you took the third offer we got back in July, we wouldn't have to slash the price by $40,000. But that's none of my business, it's yours, right? The single most important factor in selling a home is price. Consider a certified appraisal. Now, sometimes you are at your wit's end. They really want more money. Now, you're the expert, but you don't want to alienate them. You know what I think we need? We need to bring a certified appraiser in here and get an appraisal. Because if it's really truly worth that, if I've miscalculated, I will have the best marketing ever. Everyone will know it's on the market. But if I've miscalculated, you should pay for an appraisal. And then if that appraisal comes in at your number, we'll have something to make every buyer feel totally confident. That will work, right? So I wrote here, great investment if the appraisal is favorable for your price. Or it's going to be a good reality check if it comes in lower than you expect. And now you aren't the bad guy. That's a great way to work this. My mother's line too. She came up with this years ago. The right price is the price buyers hesitate to pay, but decide to pay. Because if they don't, someone else will. I want you to experience this. Ready? If I hear that this house that I really love is $775, but it feels high, and I'm going, I don't want to pay full price. Damn it. If I don't, someone else is going to. That's the right price. Over and over again, that is the right price. Gorgeous homes in fantastic locations fail to sell every day. So this is basic macroeconomics 101. It's all about the competition. Encourage people to go and see their competition. Get them out there. Now, I know what happens. They go out and see their competition. All they can focus on is the one thing that's better about the other house, right? But you're going to remind them, it's a package deal, Colleen, right? It's about the square footage and all of those other things. Where do they compare on that list? Remember the list we gave you? Square footage, kitchen, paint, yard, location. Appraisers are going to run, okay, Chris Callan, 550? What?
Yeah,
About 550. Yeah. And multi could be more, right? But multis you don't usually, multis are done like the way on cap rates and things. Multis are easier. It's when people have custom kitchens and blue roofs that you get in trouble, right? Ask them this question. Why would a buyer prefer your home over other homes in this price range in this market? They should be able to clearly articulate that. You want to know, maybe you're missing something. That's going to be good to know. Was it Kathy? Melissa?
Yeah, you can get a good appraisal for $395.
You can get a good appraisal for $395. We'll shop it out a little bit. But set those expectations. Pricing myths. I've done a whole thing about pricing myths. These are all the things that we just go, can't believe they're saying this. Ready? Waiting longer makes better offers appear. That's a pricing myth. A quick offer means I underpriced my property. You need to be able to discuss all these things, right? I underpriced it if we accepted an offer in 5 minutes, but if it was on a full week, everybody in this marketplace knew it was on. That's why I like holding offers, because that way you can guarantee that you flushed it out, even in a slower market. More print advertising will bring higher offers. The internet will not sell an overpriced home, and neither will the Wall Street Journal, Architectural Digest, Boston Magazine, or the Boston Globe, which is where they're asking you to put their house. This is years ago, but I remember someone saying, I need to be in Architectural Digest. This, magnificent Georgian home is gorgeous. And the price of the little tiniest ad I could do was $16,000, just so you know. I took this picture on Agunquit Beach this weekend on a walk with Mary. Waiting for the right buyer to pay top dollar is like waiting to win the lottery. It could happen, right? This guy might find a diamond ring this year. But do you want to do all the drudgery, the mental exercise, take the time to find it? We need wiggle room to negotiate. Now this is interesting market to market. In some towns, Arlington, Melrose, I just see them priced on the money. As I've been going up to Essex County, the entire Essex County real estate thinks you need to add 5 to 7%. Not the entire, not our agents, but I see it over and over again. They think it's almost like expected to build in wiggle room. Your sale to list price ratio up there is awful. And this is why. I can tell you right now, if you get it on the money, you will sell it faster. And people will pay, because it makes sense in the market. But Redfin and Zillow and the internet says my house is worth more. I had an aunt who had a completely pink kitchen, and all of her furniture was left over from her parents from when they willed her the house, so it was all plat. And all day long, Zillow told her house was worth $735. She couldn't believe we wanted to put it on for $549. They have never been inside, right? That's the answer, all day long. But the most important thing you want to tell all of your clients is if they're going to insist on going on too high, you want to fail fast. The longer you sit, the longer a property languishes on the market, the less they're going to get. Because these myths, buyers do not materialize later and pay a lot more. So with that, we're going to end boot camp today on this charming Proust quote. Let us be grateful to the people who make us happy. They are the charming gardeners who make our souls blossom. So with that, we'll see you on Wednesday. Well, have a good one.